Back to another episode of the Progress Report. Very exciting show today. We have two big popular guests. We got, of course, Dyer, known for doing debates, really a lot of debates. I was saying to Jay, I haven't actually watched a lot of his stuff, so I'm not super familiar, but I'm looking forward to getting to know. You do like a movie analysis and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, I host Fourth Hour of Alex Jones every Friday. Done that for about 5 years. I have 2 books on philosophy and theology, and just finished my 3rd book on Hollywood. And we do a lot of religious debates. That's true. We've done that for the past 5 or 6 years. And then now I also write for the Sam Hyde Show in terms of comedy. So do a lot of live streams, a lot of geopolitical commentary and content too. So we kind of wear a lot of different hats over here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm excited. And of course, we have Dave Green, the Distributist, a guy who I have been watching for a long time, but we've never done a collab before. I wanted to say this is kind of funny because like I converted to Christianity like 5 years ago, roughly, and I was an atheist before that. But I was watching your videos, Dave, or your streams that you were on back in like, 2015, 2016, and I would think to myself, this guy's pretty smart, but what's with the Christian stuff? and it always like made me like not like take you that seriously, I guess. And then eventually I kind of came around.
Man, 2016 was a wild time. Yeah, I remember Jay Dyer. I'm a huge fan of yours too, LP. But I remember Jay, you mainly for the stuff on Hollywood. I remember a few streams with you about that. A lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I kind of started out blogging about movies back in like 2011, and then I did a few years of that, and that kind of turned into a couple books. And I did continue with that, but it just sort of evolved into people started saying, hey, why don't you debate this atheist guy? And that kind of snowballed into its own, world of doing that stuff over there. But yeah, we've continued to do the Hollywood stuff, and I just finished the 3rd one, so that'll be out in a few months. Esoteric Hollywood Part 3. So appreciate that, man.
Oh,
I
cool.
do.
Yeah.
I do. Jay, I remember you from Warski Live briefly.
Oh yeah,
that was the first time I was kind of introduced to you because I was really into the blood sport stuff back then.
Dude, that led to the debate stuff, right? So like, I didn't plan to debate, but then like Andy was like, well, you should debate JF. And then we had that JF debate, and that basically like opened up the doorway to all the other debates. So it was a fun time.
Well, debates are useful for some things.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
So the way this show works, I have some clips from last week. We're going to take a look. I'm going to get your guys' takes on them. If you want me to pause, you can just start talking and I'll pause the video. Otherwise, I'll pause it when the clip's over. Don't feel like you have to have a take on everything, of course, or just if you feel inclined. And for super chats, I'll read any super chats at the end of the show. All right, let's get into it. And speaking of Hollywood and movies, and it's it's good for us to start the show off with a land acknowledgement here.
We gather in celebration of the Oscars on the ancestral lands of the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash peoples, the traditional caretakers of this water and land. We honor and pay our respects to indigenous communities here and around the world.
So we're still doing that, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, in Canada, it's still the rage. You're Canadian, aren't you, LP?
Yes, I have seen
they
some
never
Canadian
stopped.
land acknowledgements. Yeah,
they're all over the land acknowledgements. It's amazing.
Did you guys watch the Oscars? I'm gonna guess no.
I didn't watch them. I was kind of. I don't know. Did anyone? I was kind of a little bit following. My parents watched them. My mother watched them. So I heard about them secondhand. Like what won some movie about a prostitute, I heard.
Yeah, Best Picture was like some prostitute movie. Yeah, I saw that.
I think the TRANZ kind of swept it this year. They were the focus, I think, for quite a few awards.
What is that?
We speak in code over in my channel. TRANZ.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Jay, since you are a movie guy and we're talking about the Oscars, I did want to ask you, did you see Joker 2?
Unfortunately, we did. My wife, my wife is a fan of musicals, and I didn't really know it was a musical. She was like, "Oh, I want to watch Joker too." So I got roped into a thing that was not only a shitty movie, it was also a shitty musical movie, which made it about 20 times worse. Yeah, we did watch it. We suffered through it.
Did your wife like it at least or no?
No.
Okay. I'm like I liked
like
it. I'm
music?
like the only person who liked that movie.
No,
You're
my
the one
wife,
hot take.
my
You're the
wife
one
liked
hot
it
take.
actually. My wife saw
Let's
it. She thought it was
go.
really good, except for the end.
Yeah.
So I think you're not alone, LP. I probably see it eventually. I keep on getting dragged to supposedly good movies, and then I end up not liking them. Like everyone told me Nosferatu was good,
I didn't like it.
but I didn't. No, I didn't like it. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was kind of unremarkable. It was like one of the, like, you know, just competently made slop is how I would describe it. No.
All right, let's see what else we got here.
140 race-based laws in South Africa, all anti-white. And 8 days ago, Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, signed into law, and just hear these three words: expropriation without compensation. And this is just the straw that broke the camel's back. There's been endless laws, anti-white, boiling us like a frog in a bowl. And all I can say is thank you, America, and thank you, Donald Trump, for taking notice, because we are on the edge of the socialist abyss.
So how do you guys get out of this? Obviously, there's a complex racial history there. How do you reverse some of this? I mean, that's an awful lot of laws, and it seems...
I don't think we can internally. We have to wait till the 2029 national election, and I don't think our economy will survive. It requires some external dynamic to change it. And I think Donald Trump and America taking notice and coming in swinging with a baseball bat may be that dynamic we need.
So when you saw over the last couple of years in America, wokeness infecting our systems, and suddenly we were focused on race, and we were putting it into it was this very people who said we were systemically racist that were putting racism into the system in a systemic way, it must have given you a little concern about the direction we're going, as much as that's now been rolled back.
Well, we've been infected in South Africa with the evil woke mind virus way more than in America. We've got it times 2. And there's no momentum in South Africa to reverse it. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Oof.
Yeah, kind of a heavy topic. Go ahead.
I mean,
Dave.
Eventually, the boers are going to have to transition from ethnic lobbying to separatism. That's the only future for them. I don't know how this keeps on going. I mean, the only reason why they're not completely ethnically cleansed is there are at least a few people at the State Department that make sounds to the South African government that such a move would be rather unwise. And increasingly, the South African government is moving in that direction anyway. And I guess they already have. But I mean, like, what's it going to be? They're going to bat away the dispossession and ethnic cleansing every single time it comes up until when? Until America gets a government that doesn't want to, and then you're out of the country.
Yeah, so Donald Trump he's been making noise and kind of, beating his chest at the government there, and it's good to draw attention to this thing that's been going on for like decades now, but the guy Ruben was talking there to, I'm not 100% sure who that guy is, but he's saying that like we can't fix it internally and we need America to save us. And when I hear that, I kind of think like, well, economic sanctions or whatever America would do, that might stop them from appropriating your land as an official policy, but it's not going to stop like roaming gangs from coming to your farm and killing you and taking all your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how you solve this problem outside of an eventual path to separatism. That's I should really talk to my friend who is part of AfriForum, Con Carroll, but I don't know what's the end game for white South African or Afrikaners in this situation. I don't know. it seems like, I mean, they have Irania, they have ethnic lobbying, but the entirety of the Bantu population of that country is going to be pushing ceaselessly for expropriation without redress. And if that occurs, then all the political power that the Boers have is going to be evaporated, and that will be followed in turn by violence, as it always is. Expropriation is always the first step of an ethnic cleansing process, and if that goes on, I wouldn't keep my family in that country. I mean, this is exact pattern happened in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and it's happening here. And if the Afrikaners want to have save a nucleus of their peoples, I don't know how that would even work. I mean, this is so strange. I mean, we have entertained separatism in Africa before. When South Sudan had an ethnic cleansing problem from North Sudan, we just broke half of that country off and declared it its own separate country. Hypothetically, you think that would be possible, but I don't know.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Jay?
Well, one of a couple texts that I've covered that are historically really important. Two of they're both from Dr. Carol Quigley. There's Tragedy and Hope, and then his other book, Anglo-American Establishment, both of which deal in significant sections with the Rothschilds and their involvement in First and Second Boer War. So I think that when we understand that kind of big game player strategy that's going on there, and how this, this family is just
Jay is he is in a hotel, so
I'm sorry,
broke up a little bit there.
Oh, my bad. It's just because I mentioned Rothschild in the internet.
yeah, shut it down.
Yeah.
Right. But I have to say that I don't know a whole lot of, like, Africa is one region that I don't know a lot about. I'm pretty good with Middle East and that kind of stuff, but I don't know a lot about the modern situation in Africa. I do know about the ANC and obviously, their communist positions, their anti-white positions. But I would just say this goes back to the attempt really to replace certain peoples, if you know what I mean.
I do.
It's kind of given the fact that Israel is constantly compared to South Africa, I wouldn't wonder if you couldn't do a little bit of jujitsu and demand that there be an Israel for the Boers. That seems entirely reasonable. And if certain groups feel like they're backed into a certain rhetorical corner, you might get them to sign on to that idea in a way that it's hard to back out on later. If I were in the Boers' position, that's exactly what I would be saying. An Israel for the Boers. That's the solution to South Africa.
I think you're bang on, right? That's the only solution that doesn't involve a lot of violence, but that might potentially not involve a lot of violence.
Yeah, I mean, ethnic cleansings are always going to involve some amount of violence. It's unfortunate. But if you had a leader with a very steady hand, I think you could do it with a minimal amount of disruption.
All right, let's see what else we got here.
There is absolutely nothing beneficial that pardoning Chauvin would do for the Trump administration, for this country, for race relations, for anybody else. It is absolutely destructive. It makes no sense. And so for me, when I first saw this, generally conversations that happen come from the ground up. Usually there's some sort of murmuring under, and then it kind of like bubbles up, and then it becomes a national conversation. This seems to be a very top-down conversation that comes from somebody with an enormous amount of influence. This is nothing that anybody was talking about or thinking about. So it really makes me question, why is this conversation happening right now? It makes me question, why did Ben Shapiro want to start this conversation right now? Who does this benefit? Doesn't benefit Trump, doesn't benefit America, doesn't benefit race relations, it doesn't benefit anything. And the last point I'll make on it is this. There are very few people that can actually really speak to in depth what was going on in that trial, how how George Floyd actually died, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably 5 people that have, spent the bulk of their day on a podcast set every single day, like Ben Shapiro, like maybe 2 or 3 other people that can really talk to you in depth about this. So then they're positioning themselves to say, no, listen to me. I'm the one who really knows about this. So what? Trump's agenda is supposed to be derailed. Where we're at as a country right now is supposed to be derailed because these leftists and these Democrats are looking for a reason to have another race war. That is what they love. So why this conversation is happening right now, I have no idea.
You're not for it at all?
No.
There are levels of this one.
Yeah, I already covered this one on my solo stream, so I'll give you guys the first crack if you want.
Well, it's funny to me because, first of all, you've got this idea that the establishment, especially for the left, they had to create these civic saints. That's something we've talked about on my channel for a while. This idea that without Christianity, without the church as a vibrant part of American life, you get this sort of civic sainthood that creates figures kind of in the lineage of an MLK or whatever. And then you get the dubious legends and stories about them, which then eventually come into question. And so they could be removed or demoted from sainthood when it's not true. But as this guy seems to be arguing, I'm not familiar with who this dude is, but it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if it's true or false that he's, a new civic saint for America, because it wouldn't be good for the nation as a whole right now at this time. But that's not justice. That's not, virtue. That's not objective truth versus falsehood. I mean, if the guy was absolutely a criminal, drug addict character, and if Chauvin was innocent, then he needs to be set free regardless of collective decisions of guilt. It's almost like it's relying still on the notion that guilt is something that's determined collectively or pragmatically, and that's just not true.
This is the first dimension. I think, do we know that Derek Chauvin didn't kill George Floyd? Do we know that it was
okay? So
Rob, drugs at this stage,
as far as I know.
Yeah,
is that established?
Yeah. So Rob Smith that's the guy in the clip. He was saying, "Oh, there's only like 5 people who watched the whole trial," and it's like, no, not really. All you really have to know about it is this: the autopsy showed he had a lethal amount of fentanyl in his system, and more importantly, the autopsy doctor said that he would have ruled it an overdose if he hadn't seen the video. That's pretty much all you need to know as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that would be exonerating in most circumstances.
And there was like a lot of other stuff about the trial where Chauvin got railroaded. Like in the manual, that technique of putting the knee on the upper back like that was in his training manual. Right. But they brought on this like black police chief guy who just threw him under the bus and was like, no, we don't do that. And they wouldn't let him even. They said the manual was inadmissible, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a lot of. It was like
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he couldn't win on appeal.
It's like these trials are highly politicized, and then that damages the actual, potentiality of having justice in your situation, because the jurors and everybody involved is now under the threat of the collective, mob turning upon them. And that's actually what I think the mainstream media is designed to do, is actually turn these situations. Remember the guy who shot Trayvon? It was the same situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother reason to acquit him or pardon him, because he couldn't get a fair trial, which are guaranteed under the Constitution. But right. How do you have a fair trial when there's like a $10 billion riot over the case? Trial
by media and trial by NGO, basically.
Yeah. But you are right.
People have mentioned
Jay that Rob Smith there, he's going through like the pros and cons, and he never even addresses the question of like, is this guy innocent? What is the just thing?
It sounded like everything he was saying was like how it
consideration. Yeah,
it's like perception and nothing to do with the actual objective fact and virtue, vice, etc.
I don't think that. I hate to say this, I don't think Black people really care about George Floyd at this stage. I think they cared about it in the moment when it was symbolic, but I don't think that this is like some kind of perennial totem, such that if they present this like it's new evidence that there's going to be race riots or something like that. I also heard people say that this emergence as an issue all of a sudden was an attempt to get other issues out of the front line.
Right, because the reason it came up is because Ben Shapiro did a big thing, and he put up a website called Pardon Chauvin or some Pardon Derek, whatever it was, and so he kind of kicked off the conversation in this most recent iteration. But why he did that, I would speculate and say that Daily Wire is losing popularity, and Ben Shapiro's trying to throw some red meat to his audience, be like, no, look, I'm really right wing, guys. I'm really, look at me, I'm controversial, Pardon Chauvin kind of thing. I also think if I was going to do armchair psychology on Rob Smith here, and this might be a bit much or whatever, but I think like as a Black guy, it's hard to be unbiased. I mean, it's it's a racial issue, regardless of what, if you're Black or white, but he's saying there's going to be these race riots. And if that did happen, I like you, Dave, I'm dubious that would even happen. But if it did, that would just be more basically like racial tension and like it would reflect poorly on Black people, basically. And so I think Rob Smith doesn't want to see that happen because they already have enough PR issues.
Race riots in this country only happen at times that are convenient for the Democrat Party. And the first year of a fairly popular Republican president is not a convenient time for race riots to happen in America. It is destabilizing for the Democrats. And if it was even possible for African Americans to organize it independently of sort of the mainstream Democrats approving of it, it would drive a wedge in between the two coalitions of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they're recharging their batteries right now, so it's actually a good time to pardon him. All right, let's go on to the next one here. This clip does have Nick Fuentes in, so sorry if that's controversial for anyone, but it's not really about him. I just wanted an excuse to talk about this like Scott Presler, John Sider tweet that was going around.
Like 10 issues that conservatives gave up on, right? So they kind of redefined conservatism. One of them is this gay stuff, right? We've sort of embraced fully embraced the gayness. And you were fighting that with Rob Smith, right? You guys, the whole question was, how is anal sex a conservative value?
Right.
I mean, we did give up on this, right? I mean, what do you think about this? I mean, are we really winning if we're talking about all these issues, but this is what we're not talking about? Have you changed your opinion on this? Or what do you take about the fact that conservatism is gay now?
Yeah, well, it always has been. It always has been.
So I don't know if you guys saw this viral tweet, but this was like Josh Sader, who was a guy who was like on The Bachelor, and then he was pretending to be trans, and he got a bunch of like followers, and then now he's hooked up with this Scott Presler guy who is the what does he call himself, the Persistence or whatever, and he was doing all this like getting voters in Pennsylvania to vote for Trump, and apparently did like a lot of good work there, but is also openly gay. And in this tweet they said something like, I'm conservative and gay, and there's nothing wrong with that or whatever. And it's like kind of putting people in an awkward position, right? Like, but my whole take on it is like, you know, you're doing some good work, great, but maybe keep that other part of your life off of the public space. Like, keep that to yourself.
Well, the gay thing is important for conservatism because, as far as I'm concerned, gay marriage killed any possibility that conservatism could even be a thing. Once it was possible for progressives to successfully redefine a core sacramental notion that was the basis of Western civilization, and then subsequently punish people for violating that new definition, then there was officially nothing left to conserve in the West. And while right-wing thought certainly has something to say about all this thing, there can be no conservative gay marriage once you start allowing the redefinition of your core values. And for me, there's something more core than the sacraments. Then I don't know what to say. you're not conserving anything that I care about. And I guess it's a little bit heartening now to say that for once the trends on approval of gay marriage are going in the opposite direction. Fewer people are approving of gay marriage than ever before. I don't know how much this can be solved through public opinion at a broad level, but I think people are starting to see through just the absolute fakeness of this entire thing. I remember when I was a progressive, I was really into like Andrew Sullivan, who was like, I am the conservative gay guy for gay marriage. And it was just all fake. It was transparently just an attempt to deconstruct traditional values or Christian values and then replace it with, the values of the modern elite.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say on this because we did some podcasts on this very topic some years back where we covered the entire history of the hijacking of the right in America, which I would argue you could definitely point to gay marriage. You can go back even further to the libertarianizing of conservatism in America, and William F. Buckley played a key role in that by sort of coming into the National Review, which is kind of the hotbed of conservatism at that time. He got multiple people fired for racism. The last of the conservative writers, Joe Soberin, was there, and then he was out. Then the conservative mindset turned to this notion of, well, what's conservatism? It's small government. It's let me stack gold, this kind of stuff. That's it. And let me have a corporation. That's not what conservatism is. It can't be divorced from morals and objective truth. And like you pointed out, you can't have, notions of even courts and law without the church. You can't have marriage and family without the sacraments of, the related to those things, like the sacrament of marriage. So, I mean, yeah, there's that element of it, the subversion through, I think it was actually a CIA operation to subvert the conservative movement, turn it into a libertarian movement, which would then open conservatism up to gay rights. But ultimately, conservatism itself was on a downtrend once feminism itself even came to exist. In fact, we just did an interview with Tim Gordon today on the Alex Jones show, who we did a collab on a documentary critiquing the sort of Con Inc. idea of conservatism in regards to even human biology and male-female relations. And he argues that you could never have the current, sort of TRANZ agenda going had you not had the successive waves of, prior to that, Skittles, gay marriage, prior to that, the libertarianizing of conservatism, and then prior to that, first, second, third wave feminism. All of those revolutions prepared the way for where we are now with just completely empty, vacuous, meaningless conservatism.
Libertarianism is cope.
Yeah.
That is what you need to know about the conservative movement. Libertarianism is cope.
Yeah, and Sam just covered that in his last video. That was good.
It was adopted to disguise the obvious losses of the country by the conservative movement and their inability to accomplish anything else or to present a positive vision. And I don't know. I mean, conservatism has always done this, that for the last 100 years, they've adopted the previous changes right up unto the point where they've kicked the pillars right out from under the entire edifice. I mean, everyone's like, oh, how do we get so quickly from gay marriage to the trans thing? Well, if you can redefine marriage, why can't you redefine woman? It's the same thing. It literally is the same thing. And objects, like concepts, categories, forms, are defined by their principal telos or vocation.
Their nature.
The principal telos and vocation of man and woman is marriage. So if once you destroy the telos of man and woman, marriage, the next logical step is to deconstruct the objects that it applies to. So I don't know how people don't put this together, but
peepees are for the JJs, not for boo-boo. You don't put the peepee in the boo-boo.
Let me ask you guys this. So I agree about the marriage thing 100%. I think that's a pretty easy one, but let me ask you something a little bit more gray area. So you have these conservative pundits who are gay. That black guy, Rob Smith, from the last clip, he's gay. Andrew Sullivan, as you mentioned, Scott Presler here. Yeah.
Every time I hear a conservative pundit, I just assume that they're gay. Like that's where I'm at now. I was like, okay, so another gay dude. Okay.
Yeah.
What in your view would be, what would you want to see? Like, do you think that if those guys are effective in when it comes to like rallying voters and stuff like that, that they should be embraced? Do you think that they should be completely shut out and disavowed publicly because of their lifestyle choices? What would you guys want to see there?
The thing that I don't like is the word "I am gay." Like it's an identity. As soon as sexuality becomes an identity, it is over. Especially if an identity can be a sexuality that is directly, an assault on Western norms. Like, people have always, there's been always this problem with buggery in leaders for 1,000 years. And I don't know, people can contest a lot of these things, but it's been a reality in the leadership classes and it's been tolerated to a certain extent. But it wasn't until the 20th century when people went up and said, like, I am this thing. And this thing is like, my identity is defined by my enjoyment of, a certain type, a certain sexual position. This is bizarre. It's a function of like Freudian, like 19th century ideas of psychology that tries to essentialize sexuality and inside identity. And the problem is, once you have a conservative person that happens to have a buggery habit on the side is something that like that linguistically parses, if not being a little bit problematic. But having a leader say, I like my identity, like a core part of my identity, like I am an American and I am a gay man. That is, now we're openly saying that this behavior, this bad habit, this proclivity is now a core part of your identity, and it has a political community attached to it. We wouldn't do this for anything. We wouldn't do this for adultery. We wouldn't do this for extra. Like no one, like Donald Trump doesn't go like, I participated in extramarital sex, therefore I am a fornicating American.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't approve of Donald Trump's fornication, but I don't have to acknowledge his identity as a fornication American, right? Like that doesn't. I'm never asked to do that.
I would back that up with the practical notion. We just did a lecture on my channel through a book on the history of sexpionage or sex espionage. And one of the things that the Soviets were really good at in the Cold War was profiling people in the West with, key roles in military, intelligence, government, corporations, whatever, who actually might have this vice. And the reason that they look for those kinds of people is that not just because they could be compromised and thus controlled, but also because it almost in every case would suggest a person with extreme narcissistic tendencies in their personality. And that was another further level of control and manipulation that could be utilized by foreign governments. Now, we're not in the Cold War, but the principle still maintains that in a leader or a representative, you have a higher standard of expectations. We don't expect them necessarily to be saints. Kings are not necessarily going to be saints. They can be at times, but leaders need to have, some degree of virtue. And I think we've seen a lot of disasters on the right in the last 10, 20, 30 years, whether neocon, paleocon, tradcon, whatever. So many of these people are morally atrocious individuals who should not be leaders, even if they're effective. It still doesn't pay off in the long run to have people, sort of sexually compromised in this way.
Yeah. The problem is it's very difficult to like convince the wider conservative body of, what I mean? Like whenever I even think about this problem, I remember Dave Rubin announcing his surrogate children and all the big accounts being like, oh, congratulations. And I just feel like it's,
but he has Jordan
it's
Peterson
over,
on,
man.
so
The West has fallen.
He's got Jordan Peterson on, so it's good.
Gay surrogacy for me is just the ultimate. Do you notice how we don't even debate about that? Like there's a huge debate over gay marriage. There was never a debate over gay surrogacy. And if you scratch the surface of the surrogacy industry, and in particular the gay surrogacy industry, you will encounter all sorts of horror stories that you can't even believe. And we never once debated this. I can't, every time I see it, I just can't believe what I'm saying and what people, especially what women, will put up with. Literal Handmaid's Tale sex slavery. And if it has the right optics, sign me up for it. Apparently.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the next thing here. Enough about that fun topic.
Okay, so if it don't open till 2. Okay, so if it don't open at 2, then how the hell are you gonna pick up your medicine?
Easy.
Answer me that.
Easy. I'm right in front of that thing. How are you gonna get it?
Okay, can you get the fuck off my car? Thank you, sir.
Actually, it's ma'am, but fuck you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Like I said.
Sir? Oh, really, sir?
Thank you.
Sir? You want to keep saying sir, bitch? You want to keep saying sir, bitch?
Oh man,
is that real?
Yeah, that's America. That's America in a nutshell, right there. A black woman and a big fat trans dude arguing about who gets to be first in line to pick up their medicine or whatever.
Big pharma pills.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I don't know. We don't even have to. If you guys want to talk about it, feel free. But we can just move on to the next one. It's just like a funny clip as far as
I kind of want to have one of these interactions. I live in the Bible Belt, so I don't see a whole lot of that, but I feel like I'm missing out on like viral content. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if I can record it.
I can tell you
I've had the angry black woman interaction.
Yeah, that one's a little more common.
I've had the AGP trans interaction.
Oh,
but I've never had both at once. So that's
remember,
quite a rare.
I was in Parksville, British Columbia, which is this little town on Vancouver Island, and I was at Domino's picking up a pizza I had ordered, and this guy comes in fully trooned out, like not passing at all, most obvious, and he's got like an 8-year-old boy with him. And I didn't interact at all, but I just was like, oh man, this is like the most depressing thing I've ever seen in real life. The kid was just dejected too. And I think I heard him call the guy dad. He's like, okay, dad, or whatever. And I thought, man.
Oh man, I don't know. I've seen this just destroy multiple families at this stage. And have you ever interviewed any of the trans widows or whatever? I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it. I'd like to think that society is going to wake up like from a bad dream, but there's going to be a lot of destroyed lives there.
It does kind of feel like we're trending sort of back to some kind of sanity, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like maybe the worst is over?
Well, Europe has
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that how, the way progressives backtrack is they forget that they ever had the position to begin with. But now we have like Harvard and Johns Hopkins and Boston University and all these places, all these medical centers that have gotten on board with this stuff. It's part of public record now. It's very hard for them to back out.
It's a big industry too.
Right.
Yeah, it's profitable.
Yeah.
Although they will always pick power over profit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This one is we'll file this one here under try not to cringe.
World, you go, girl. No more sugar and spice and everything nice. It's a chic thing and it's all in me. I can be anything that I want to be. Don't consider me a minority. Ladies, help me out if you agree. Now I can bring home the bacon fried in a pan. Never let you forget that you're a man. Cause I'm a WOMAN. That's what I am. Doing all I can. The thing that makes me mad and crazy upset. Gotta break my neck just to get my respect. Go to work and get paid less than a man when I'm doing the same damn thing that he can.
This is how we appeal to the kids and get them back in the pews, right?
And you can hear from the echo just how empty this church is. You can hear her voice echo off all four walls.
I've been doing some remixes of these types of things when they come around in my feed, and then I sing along with them. Did you see you may have even played it on your show, the Black and indigenous people of color. Yeah, so I'm gonna actually find this one and sing along to it. But yeah, that's what I do on my Instagram in my spare time.
Yeah, nice.
Really,
I'll send you the clip.
What's gone on in the Protestant mainline churches is, in my mind, just straight up real estate fraud. They have like the progressive branch of these churches always wins. They take the building, the devout people go off and have their mass inside of a trailer park, and then you have these churches with no members in charge of like these real estate properties that are worth millions and millions and millions and millions. And then like the church closes down, they sell them, and everyone walks away with money. I can't believe that this isn't just straight up real estate fraud.
That's an interesting point. We covered that today, actually, a little bit on the fourth hour with Tim. We were talking about both Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant churches too. Like you can look at the history of really wealthy families beginning to fund certain seminaries with certain professors as they have to put this guy in as the chair of the department, or else they don't get the funding. This guy ends up being like a super lib person. This has been going on in the Protestant world since the 20s and 30s. Even the Protestant pastors were writing about that back then. And then not too long after that, they started doing the same thing with Orthodox seminaries through certain funding mechanisms. That all came out, by the way, the Roman Catholic Church too. That all came out with the USAID stuff. Many of those listed tens of millions of dollars given to liberal Lutheran churches to push this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this is the pattern that all Christians have, with very few exceptions, is that our leadership is completely stuck. And if it is not heretically compromised, like this church obviously is, it is still stuck within a boomer way of understanding theology and the problem of the modern world and the current culture wars. And all the adherents are just kind of watching their leaders go crazy along these lines.
Yeah. Have you guys heard Steve Saylor wrote a couple articles about how wokeism actually comes from Protestantism? Have you guys heard that? And do you have any thoughts on that?
LP, you are really tempting me to fulfill my stereotype. That was originally the thesis of Mencius Mollbug.
Yeah, I mean, there's an Orthodox writer who wrote a book recently, also back in the day. His name's G.M. Davis, and he wrote a book about Antichrist and the theology of Antichrist. But there's a great chapter in there about the idea of social justice and activism originating in American Puritanism. So he argues that the Puritan, and this is not just the sort of low level critique of like, well, the work ethic comes from the, Puritan. I'm aware of all that, but this is actually going a little bit further and saying that like the notion of social justice and applying, these insane egalitarian principles, it originates with like the Puritan idea. And then once you divest when you demythologize and divest it of the spirit, the supernatural, it just turns into this sort of wild wokeism.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, everything that we're saying with progressivism kind of comes out of a lot of these early Protestant heresies, like the Levelers and the Quakers and the Shakers.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they were moderated because they had the spiritual dimension, and they had to stick to the moral teachings. But now it's like this one line of thought in those specific branches of Christianity just became like a cancer cell.
The Quakers were some of the first to say that women had the absolute equality when it came to being overseers, elders, and preachers. So radical Reformation, you're absolutely right, just in the notion of women having that role in the church, which no other church, even the classical Reformation guys, Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, they would have never thought that women should be ministers. But yeah, the radical reformers did think that, some of them.
I always thought it was the Jews, but I guess I was wrong.
Well, the Reformation was influenced by a lot of, some Judaic ideas.
Right.
Well, don't read that one book by Martin Luther, though.
Right.
All the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I think
Really?
that because I mean, when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly like Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel.
So
and
it
I'm
was
not
all-
saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
So a lot of kerfuffle kicked up over this one. A lot of people pretty mad at Joe Rogan, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, allegations being thrown around. Jay, you must know a lot about Epstein. You're saying you're into the Middle East stuff. Well, what are your thoughts on? I guess the release of the documents. What do you think about that whole kerfuffle?
Well, the release is a whole other topic because, like you're saying, like, you know, if Ian is essentially relying on Whitney Webb's books, which I've read. Whitney and I have the same publisher, so I got those books as soon as they were out. And you know, part 2 is the Epstein book. It's really good. Most of what Ian's talking about there is from that part 2. And I'm just scrolling back because I was, after all this stuff with Ian, I reposted all my 4th hours of Alex Jones covering the Epstein stuff. And to back up the overall thesis, there is the former head of not just the connections that he's making with the prime minister with Ehud Barak, but former Mossad agent Ari Ben Menashe has gone on multiple interviews admitting that, of course, Epstein worked for Israel. It's just like all over Twitter. You can find this interview everywhere. It's on my wall if you want to find it. So, I mean, it shouldn't even be surprising. Of course, he wasn't just doing it for Israel. He was also kind of at times doing stuff for the CIA, probably FBI as well. He had multiple passports, according to like chapter 1 or 2 of Whitney's book. So I think all of that's pretty obvious. But I do agree that it's unlikely that we'll get the full picture because once Bondi got the truckload of the documents, it's now being redacted. Who knows how extensive that redaction might be, but given Trump's alignments in terms of the Middle East, Trump seems to rely quite a bit on probably what Israel is saying and doing in regard to Iran. I don't think Trump is going to want to do things that might upset Israel, given his recent statements about Iran.
Wow.
Yeah, I keep on expecting them to bite the bullet on this Epstein thing. I mean, because this is just what intelligent agencies do and have done for the last 100 years. They create honeypots, they get blackmail information, they use that to try to gain leverage on assets. I mean, this is a very standard book, and we almost have admissions that this is what was going on. I haven't heard a single explanation that has not been some form of this. Yeah.
I mean, this is Times of Israel. This is not Daily Stormer. This is Times of Israel saying, right, Ehud Barak met multiple times with Jeffrey Epstein.
I guess they can't bite the bullet on this because then that would immediately frame the question of what is Israel's role in influencing our deep state, which is probably very extensive.
Yeah, and the climate is not good for the public opinion on Israel right now, right? It's like about as bad as it's ever been in our lifetimes. So I can't imagine they would come out right now and be like, oh, by the way, they were trafficking minors. All right, what else? What else do we got here? Oh yeah,
and it was targeting Americans. It was
little Hunter
American officials and the
Hunter
American
Avalon.
president.
How strong does your faith have to be to pray for somebody and they can actually fucking get better? Christianity is a huge scam because you have to believe that you're a piece of shit fuck up sinner, so disgusting and wretched you can never even be in the presence of God. That's the first thing you have to believe. You then accept that only God can save you and I can only be saved through God, and boom, within 2 or 3 steps, you have a total reliance. You have stripped people of their own self-worth, their own self-confidence. It's gone, and now all they have is God to rely on. It's the perfect scam.
Hunter Avalon. Yeah. There are so many angles. A man stripped of his confidence and self-reliance, but not by a belief in God. Wouldn't you know it? This is one thing that I've been kind of realizing, especially since the Sam Cedar debate, if anyone caught it. It's kind of amazing how, I mean, especially with Hunter Avalon, how can people get through like their whole career as leftist debate bros and influencers and not be aware of just like very common high school, college, C.S. Lewis tier apologetic responses to this? They talk like I taught Sunday school for 2 years, and like my kids could answer that, and they weren't even particularly devout. Like it's just the amount of the lack of knowledge on the part of progressives who put themselves forward as people who can confront conservative ideas is just always astounding.
A lot of times too, this mindset of a person who used to be conservative, I think he used to be like a right-wing guy before he went left, sounds like he has like a Protestant mindset in terms of like maybe even a Calvinistic or Lutheran type attitude of I'm complete garbage, total depravity, filth, all this kind of stuff, which is not exactly the attitude that we have in terms of the fall. Yeah, we have a tendency towards the passions, towards vice, but we are not totally depraved and complete filth. So a lot of that was a really extreme sort of Protestant rhetoric there. And I think Protestantism and evangelicalism have actually been responsible for producing not just the SJW woke stuff in terms of a long-term influence, but it's kind of an atheism factory, which produces people like Hunter Avalon. And then the second part about man not having dignity and self-confidence in the Christian paradigm, that's pretty laughable given the fact that in the atheist paradigm, there's no such thing as dignity and self-worth other than some relative subjective idea, because we're all just, floating bags of molecules and meat in a meaningless, nihilistic cosmos. So there's no value there. And to just say, well, but I have value in myself and worship myself. Yeah, but that's also finite, relative, subjective. And once you die, you go into the great nothing. So it's really meaningless.
Can we take a moment to appreciate that this person was converted by Vosh? I still can't quite get over that as a reality. We could talk about the flaws of John Calvin till the cows come home, but I don't think I don't think John Calvin could have been refuted by Vosh. And that's where really Hunter Avalon is.
If Vosh doesn't like elicit a visceral disgust response in you, that's like a basic litmus test right there. If you're not immediately just kind of like, ugh, I think you failed. Basically, something went wrong there.
Vosh and Destiny come out of the same hellmouth. I think they need to go back into the hellmouth.
Yeah. I'll just say what he was saying about, I'm not worthy to be in the presence of God or whatever. When I hear that, I think, well, yeah, that's because God is like, his glory is way beyond it. Like, it's so massive that I couldn't be in his presence as a human. Like, I would just melt or whatever.
That's the most obvious
I don't see it as like a
thing.
bad thing. I see it as like, that's because God is so awesome,
That's like the easiest thing to believe about Christianity. I find the redemption hard to believe, but I find the complete depravity of humanity incredibly easy to believe. Well, maybe I shouldn't say complete depravity. That does sound Calvinistic, but I mean, the fact that you cannot be the wretchedness of humanity. I don't know. I know that I'm going to step on a theology landmine by using the wrong word for this, but like the concept of original sin and man's inadequacy in the face of God is just so intuitively obvious to me. What's not intuitively obvious is Christ's redemption, which is, you have to look into that to even believe it's possible. And, even then it's hard to believe.
All right. Well, I mean,
just out of curiosity, did you mention that Vaush converted him? Did Hunter Avalon have a religious affiliation before going lib?
I believe he was raised
he
Christian.
come from he was evangelical. So was his wife.
He had to be evangelical. I knew it. Yeah.
His wife was too, right? I think they're divorced now, right, or something.
Yeah, we don't have to get into all that, but it was lurid.
I've heard rumors. I've heard rumors.
All right, let's see what else we got here.
Should be avoided. Like, will America still be America if it's 90% Indian, it's 90% Chinese? Or is there a stock, a certain type of people with a certain
I will answer the question this way. America will cease to be America if it does not have a Christian foundation and undergirding. That is how I will answer.
So if it was 90% Indian Christian, is that still America?
If it's Christian, yes.
So the audio is kind of bad there, but maybe you guys already saw that one already. But basically, the guy says, he says, will it still be America if it's Christian, but like 90% Indians or 90% Chinese? And Charlie Kirk says yes. That's basically what happened there.
Yeah.
And the answer is actually no. It's actually no.
Yeah, the answer is no. And part of the reason that he thinks that, of course, is that it's unfortunate, but, you know, we've been critiquing on my channel, not just libertarianism, but the Enlightenment ethos for a long time. And along with that Enlightenment ethos is the premier Enlightenment nation, America, and some of the flaws in the founding documents and ideology of America. I'm not totally opposed to my country. I love it as far as I can, but I do think that there's kind of a tension in the founding ideas of the American documents, particularly the notions of, you know, equality, this kind of stuff, the Lockean elements in terms of Jefferson and all that. It's just not true. And so America was always kind of going to either go with its Enlightenment, rationalist, atheist road, or it was going to go in a more Christian route, which would entail then, you know, in my view, Christian nationalism, Christian society. The Byzantine model is the double-headed eagle of church and state working together with the same body. That would be the Christian idea, not the idea of, you know, this idea that a nation state is purely propositional. It has no association with the actual stock of the people there. That to me is preposterous, but Charlie Kirk has to say that if he's going to try to defend the presuppositions of Americanism.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had this very debate with Joel Berry. I mean, I really wish we could focus on converting India to Christianity rather than converting America to being Indian, and then, you know, trying to get them to be Christian as some kind of consolation prize. Just because Christianity is true and the most fundamental foundation for a society's religion does not mean that all peoples around the world are identical.
Right.
People are not ethnically interchangeable. No one before the 20th century ever thought they were. Christianity never asserted they were. That the famous quote that everyone likes quoting about, you know, from St. Paul, that there'll be neither Jew nor Greek is for some kingdom of it also has there will be neither a man nor a woman.
Female. Right.
So it's not designed to be some kind of idea that every category is melted down into every other category. And, you know, to the extent that it existed as a reality, it's supposed to be something that's only available, you know, post the beatific vision or something like that. So, I mean, I don't know. And you can walk people through this. They'll never internalize it, not because of anything that Christianity says, but because they have this programming that we can't acknowledge that different peoples, even if they have separate equal access to God, do not behave or have identical qualities to them.
I would add too, I don't know if you guys saw the first episode of the Sam Hyde show that went viral.
I've seen them all.
Dear Elon. I contributed a significant part to the Dear Elon, and that dealt quite a bit with this question of interchangeable cogs and Indian people groups. So that also, I think, is a good answer to that question that was posed to Charlie Kirk. But anyway.
Yeah, it's a shame Elon never responded, never acknowledged the video. I hope he at least watched it. Just to give you guys a little context here. This was a 2020 movie or TV show that they were putting together, and they ended up abandoning the project. But this like trailer just leaked this past week, and it's for the Powerpuff Girls which is a property I've heard of, but I'm not really familiar with. But I think it, like, to me, it's interesting how like 2020 being peak wokeness, and I watch this and I kind of think like, yeah, I feel like we've come a bit of a ways since then, but I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic. But and I also, the other thing this makes me think when I see her, the girl's like puking because she got drunk or whatever, and it's this kind of like millennial vulgarity thing, you know what I mean? Like,
well, one thing that's weird about this is back in the 2000s when the cartoon version of Powderpuff Girls or Powerpuff, whatever it is, like their villain was actually like a hermaphroditic TRANZ villain. But now, now the Powerpuff Girls are like, I'm not going to wear something if it's, you know, gender heteronormative.
Yeah.
So
definitely that phrase feels very 2020. You know, that it would be unusual to see something like that now in a new TV show. It kind of feels old.
Joe his life.
Yeah, you know, so all of these 2000s era things, like, you know, like for example, back in the 2000s, I don't think anybody thought of, you know, SpongeBob as that he was supposed to be gay, and then retroactively, oh no, turns out, you know, SpongeBob and Patrick were supposed to be gay, and then, you know, Harry Potter, oh, it turns out Dumbledore was gay all along. Right? That's the magic trick, was Dumbledore was gay all along. You got tricked.
That was the
like,
first
they're
one.
Retroactively taking all these pop culture things and just saying, oh, everybody in the show was gay, and you just never got it.
Yeah,
that was the first one. The first one I remember retroactive canonical homosexuality was Dumbledore from J.K. Rowling. Yes. And boy, did J.K. pay for that one.
I was just thinking, I was watching that, I was thinking about what you said at the start, Dave, about how you and your wife would watch You Can't Stop Progress to see how long you could last. And I was like, is this clip going to be over soon? Like, this is killing me, you know?
They hit all the cliches, right?
Yeah.
A lot about women. I think I learned exactly how the fall of man occurred in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, and Adam said one day, wow, Eve, here we are at one with nature, at one with God. We'll never age, we'll never die. And all our dreams come true the instant that we have them. And Eve said, yeah, it's just not enough, is
it? No, that's not funny.
I was just waiting for more.
No, that was kind of his point.
Oh, God. Well, that was a good one.
Yeah. She walked right into that.
I don't know what he was saying.
Is that DJ
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
Man, as disappointing as Trump is.
Right next to Wakanda. It's right there.
Yeah. As disappointing as Trump can be, there's moments like this where I just love the guy. You know, he's just so funny. His comedic timing is the African nation of Lesotho, which no one's ever heard of.
The guy's got a stand-up routine for sure.
Did you guys have any hot takes on the State of the Union thing, or not so much?
I didn't watch it. Did you guys?
I watched it. Yeah.
I just watched the highlights. Yeah.
I don't know. We ended up, for some reason, we don't usually watch congressional C-SPAN type stuff. For some reason, we ended up watching that whole thing, and it was pretty entertaining, you know, in parts like that. But yeah, I was actually hoping for more. Everybody was like, "It was so based. It was so based." I was kind of wanting a little more, but.
We came to a country, found a people we deemed inferior, and stole their land right out from under them. And since then, we have imported different races we deem inferior to do our dirty work for us. And when that work is done, we lament their presence in our country as an assault on our values.
Shut the hell up, dude. Have you spent much time among the Chinese, Mrs. Blake?
More than you, I'd wager.
You'll have to forgive my wife, Senator. She's never one to pass up a heated debate.
I guess you lost her vote, Senator. If she had one.
Yeah, I did that little edit. This is a show called Warrior that was on Netflix that I decided to throw on while I was working on some stuff. And it's like it's marketed as like a kung fu show, right? But it's like kung fu in like in America and like the when
I mean, I guess that the white girl boss becomes a kung fu master.
I didn't get that far. There's so much feminism and gratuitous sex and race mixing. And I just was like, man, this isn't what I thought I was getting. I just wanted to see some guys get punched in the face, you know?
My wife and I, we can't even hardly watch these kinds of shows because, I mean, the new shows, because they're all just like, I mean, it's all propaganda. My third book, I actually waited too long to cover feminism in Hollywood. I mentioned it a little bit in the second book, but this third book, I've got a whole like 30, 40 page chapter on the goddess, you know, in Hollywood and how the dark Gnostic goddess is actually what I titled it, how this archetype is just everywhere of not just the girl boss, but sort of like even further on, like the only way for man to achieve salvation is going to be through some sort of female, you know, savior figure that replaces the masculine patriarchal Christ figure. So it's just, yeah, it's unbearable, really.
I guess, and the writing is just so flat. I mean, it's not shocking anymore. Everything just kind of feels like these, I don't know.
It's like you're being
very
lectured
female
in
writing.
every show.
Yeah, it's like very even so. You know, now by this time, you know, I don't know. I'm not really a big TV person, but I have looked at a few shows, and the wokeness has definitely been turned down. But you can still tell that there is something about the writing where you just know it's very, very female. It's very, very coloring within the lines. The shows don't really have an edge to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it feels like you're watching somebody's like woke Dungeons and Dragons game or like live action role playing game, or like it's like the theater kids putting on a skit in high school. There's no inspiration. There's no reason why it needs to exist. It's there to be kind of like to go through the motions and deliver some kind of like very, very formulaic catharsis.
But he's like, hey, I want to question the World War II narrative. And this is when I was like, oh, this is it. This is the hook that he's using. Let's play the clip.
So they use World War II. Let me ask you guys a question. If they use World War II to subvert white nationalism to the point of extinction, wouldn't it be truly treasonous if the story of World War II wasn't even true?
Andrew Tate has the balls to say, hey, we need to question World War II and the narrative that we bought. That nationalism is bad because Germany was nationalist before World War II.
So this is kind of part of like there was a series of podcasts that all happened in about like a 24, 36 hour period where you had Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan, you had Andrew Tate going on a bunch of shows and saying stuff like that. I think he went on the Full Send podcast and he said, you know, America doesn't have free speech because the one thing you're not allowed to talk about is Jewish power. Candace Owens talked to Theo Vaughn. They brought up Jews and so a lot of people were like, oh, what's going on? It's all this mainstream kookery and anti-Semitism. Now Daryl Cooper's going on Joe Rogan, which a lot of people are complaining about that on Twitter as well. So I guess I wanted to hear your thoughts on more so than on the specific clip on just like this general trend of where you guys think the sort of public discourse is headed with these big podcasts. If you think,
well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that when I talk to Jewish people, they don't seem to be aware of just how much they've lost in the last 2 years. Like they've completely lost control of the mainstream narrative, and this is going to eventually come back and really hurt them. And they're doing none of the right moves right now to try to regain it and to try to win favor back for and then they need that. They need allies. As for where this is all going to lead, the problem is that there is no, power is orchestrated through elites and through power coalitions, and there's not really going to be any like political movement on this front, because all political movements in this country are essentially have at least a very powerful Jewish contingent.
I would say that it's interesting because I knew about these Middle Eastern issues back in 2007-8. That was a very difficult time to talk about any of these things. I tried to blog about that stuff back at the time. Got a lot of heat, a lot of threats back then. I got the first year-long ban on Facebook for talking about some of these topics in 2014, 15. So I've kind of dealt with that firsthand in the sense of like kind of pioneering. And I'm not calling myself like, oh, I'm a pioneer, but I mean, I know the shift, because
it's
now
easier now. Yeah.
It's easier to talk about just even basic geopolitical stuff, right? Like you can say exactly what Ari Ben Menashe, former Mossad guy, says, and you're called, an evil right-wing tiny mustache man obsessor. But I have criticisms of, tiny mustache man philosophy. I've never been into that philosophy. I've read it. I've studied it. I don't think that it's the most Christian philosophy. So my concern is that even though the tides have changed, the floodgates have been opened, people are kind of discussing all these topics that you couldn't talk about in 2007, 8, 9, 10. My concern is that they're going to try to foist everyone into some extreme type of position the other way, which might be controlled opposition in some way. So they might want to have some fake right-wing group. And I don't think they've had a lot of success with previous fake right-wing leaders and groups like Patriot Front things or whatever. I'm just giving examples. Fed run types of things. So, but they might try that. And one angle I think they're trying to do is the Islam push. And I would say that, number one red flag for me with Andrew Tate is the trying to tie his version of right wing into Islam, and then pushing that in America, which I think is just bad news because.
Well, you think they're going to push Islam in America as a as a right wing thing?
Oh, they already are. In fact, they're tying it to.
That's a stretch.
Well, I know it's already happening I'm talking about in the vocal Twitter sphere. It's being tied to the push for Islam. You even had some of the right-wing traditional Catholic guys last year with Sneeko, with that whole crew, Hijab. And those guys are all bad news because if I recall, I think Andrew Tate went and had a dinner with like the Saudi royals. And then right after that, he comes out pushing Islam. He's since not been a very good Muslim, and so some of them have distanced themselves from him. But the reason I know about that domain is like the last 6 years, I've been debating all the top Muslims, and I've been forced to study a lot of Islam, which I didn't know much about. But I've seen this trend that they're trying to link together people who question World War II and people who, engage in discussing Middle Eastern countries. They're tying that to the red pill right-wing Tate Islam right-wing alliance sphere, and I think that's all bad news.
I agree. Except I'm not sure that Patriot Front is fake and feds, but
it may not be. I was just using like a potential example of like something they're trying to put out there.
Okay.
Look, I mean, I would say this though. The focus really has to be on who rules North America and Europe, and who can develop a political identity for diaspora populations like the Boers. That has to be the focus. Getting back at various ethnic groups that you think are hostile, I think that's a distraction. I think, like I said, I think, the worst thing possible would be to kind of like get into this weird thing where somehow we're the representatives of the Palestinians now, and they're like, this is now the central concern because Islam is now the right-wing ally. I think that would be a disaster.
Yeah, no, I'm not an Islam fan at all. You know what? We'll just leave it there. We don't need to JQ too hard tonight.
Well, I do think, because there's also a lot of great things that I see, like in like a lot of Jewish families, they value education.
Right.
They invest in their children. Those are like some of the things that they do super well. They work together, right? Like a lot of Jewish guys that I know, they'll connect you with another Jewish guy to work with or something, you know, like.
Okay, the reason I wanted to touch on this clip is because when I hear him say that, and you hear this all the time, you hear people say like, oh, well, I want our country to be like Israel. I want our country to be like an ethno-religious state or whatever. And you say, oh, and I want white people to be like nepotistic and to like work in their own self-interest and stuff like that. When I hear like Theo Von say that, like, oh, this is something I admire about Jews. They like look after each other. I kind of like think like it's so, you can't do that as a white person in the current climate. Like imagine going to a restaurant and it's a slow day and the waitress is like chatting you up and you ask her how it's going and she's like, oh, I'm having car trouble. And you're like, oh, I know a good mechanic. He'll take care of you. He's white. She would look at you like, what the fuck? Are you trying to get me fired? You know what I mean? Like you can't really do that.
Well, you know, since the Enlightenment, the Caucasian Western peoples have had this inculcation of the ideology of radical atomistic individualism. And so that's seen as something that's a violation of altruistic principles and universal Enlightenment principles. But it's true that in some cases, in other situations where people don't have that indoctrination or that belief, in-group preference can be a positive thing that helps them succeed and do well.
Yes.
They help their group, you know, and that's something I feel like other groups could learn how to do as well, you know.
Are you hanging with Diddy? I think he's in there.
Go ahead.
I will say this, you know, Western peoples have got to start thinking collectively about politics. It's got to happen. And you know, I'm not saying that it has to have any particular racial delineation, like on a purity sense.
Hold on. When you say Western peoples, that's white people. So you're saying we need some white identitarianism.
Well, but what I'm saying is, I think that like I do not think there will be like a white. I think it's going to be much more like Boers and Germans and French, or you know, various groups of like European Americans or European Canadians. I guess I still have a little bit of the E. Michael Jones perspective on that, but politics is a group collective game, and if minimally there cannot be a discussion like this, we're just heading right back to the way we were before, with anti-whiteness being the order of the day.
I agree.
People often ask us, do you make trans candles? And our answer is simple. There's no one way to be trans. There's no one way to have a trans body. Our candles have always been and will always be gender neutral. If what you're asking is whether we create design with top surgery scars, bottom growth, or bodies with penises and breasts, the answer is yes. We absolutely do.
Sounds like they're on top of the market.
I like that. What she said was ask the question.
They always ask.
This is actually interesting. So let's analyze this.
Oh, this is the one I mentioned.
Free speech. This is an interesting conversation because America believes that as free speech. It doesn't. But every single country in the world has things you cannot talk about.
We kind of already covered this. Well, I'll just skip ahead to I'm gonna go to super chats in about 10 minutes too, so I want to try to cover some different stuff. All right, here we go.
It seems like every day they're sick and tired of changing their clocks back and
different stuff.
I mean, we need to lock the clock. Now we have President Trump in the White House. He agrees. Lock the clock. I have a bill.
This clip went nuts on Twitter, and everybody was just saying, "Why? Like, what? Why is this Israeli senator talking about American politics?"
Is this like the daylight savings time versus the Sabbath? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and also this is Rick Scott, who you may have heard about Hassan saying that they should kill this guy, and then he got like a 24-hour Twitch suspension. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
No, I've been off of Twitter.
Same guy, yeah.
Hassan Piker.
Mm-hmm.
Do they not have staff that watch these videos?
There's no American flag in the framing at all. It's just like a big, like that's like your eyes are drawn right to that, you know, like there's the Israeli.
Yeah.
No, it's obviously on purpose. Yeah.
No, but I get it, but he's trying to show his support for Israel, but classically the support for Israel is an Israel flag next to an American flag, preferably under the American flag. This just looks like he's an Israel government official.
But does the topic of, is he talking about daylight savings time?
Yeah, he's talking about getting rid of daylight savings time, which is not something I personally really care about or support. I don't know if you guys have strong feelings on it, but I would rather
it just doesn't fit with Israel. It's like some kind of weird mind control video or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it does look very natural. It looks like that flag's like up there 24/7. It doesn't look like it's put there for the photo shoot.
Probably does.
That's like you come into the office to talk to this guy, and he has, you know, the Israel flag behind his desk.
Protection Act, which would lock the clock and stop this forever changing twice a year. So let's make sure this is the last time we have to change our clocks.
Maybe he's
Only
not
white
even
people are not.
into Israel stuff. Maybe he's literally just into Kabbalah, and that's like a giant Kabbalah flag.
All right, this is another Tate one that we kind of already talked on that topic. Let me skip ahead to Tucker Carlson here. Although Tucker's kind of saying the exact same thing in this clip.
Well, just on principle, like every other group in the world has the right to its own homeland except white people. Like what?
Yeah.
Like tell me, just explain to me how that makes sense. Either no group has the right or every group has the right. Yep. It's really that simple. And if you want to say no group has the right, okay. You might even convince me. I don't know. I'm not a race guy, actually, by my temperament at all. I'd kind of like to ignore it. But as long as some groups have a right to self-determination, then every group has a right. It's that simple.
So this is what you're talking about, Dave, is we need some kind of collective, we need to have the conversation. And it does feel like we're getting closer to having that conversation in a real way.
I mean, why not start with the Boers? That's my feeling.
Yeah.
Their situation is dire, and their only choice is to essentially be obliterated and ethnically cleansed, or to essentially assert a separate identity that is politically expressed as a nation.
Well, you know, they already have like Orania, right? Which is like the Afrikaner like town. And I was looking at, I saw a picture today that was like they kind of founded that like back in the 70s, or it showed like what the land looked like. And it was like a desert. Yeah, and now it's like lush and beautiful, you know. And I was just like, oh man, they did a good job there. So they're kind of already doing it just without, you know, borders.
Yeah, but they got that piece of land because it was in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, with absolutely no defensible geographical features to it. There's no way that Orania can become a nation because it's cut off from everything. Maybe, I don't know, but I mean, it wouldn't look like a nation in any ordinary sense. It would be cut out right from the center of the country, and a country that will probably be very, very hostile to it.
Yeah, just a little city state. You know, you throw up some walls.
The Singapore of Africa.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Anytime you bring that topic that Tucker mentioned up, the opposition to that idea always points to this sort of universal violation of some immoral, some ambiguous moral position of colonialism. Oh, you were a colonialist, so no white people deserve anything because of, quote, colonialism. When you mention that about any other empire or nation that engaged in colonialism, it doesn't apply. And also there's the reverse notion that, no, you should have the West colonized by other people groups as a punishment for colonialism. So colonialism against you is okay as a punishment for your colonialism.
Yeah, because colonialism is the reason that those countries all got jacked up and fell behind. And so the only fair thing to do is to give them our countries now, basically.
Exactly.
What is the best one night stand you've ever had?
So many. I mean, I had so many fun one night stands in my 20s and 30s. I once had sex with this guy.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this one.
Be able to call people out with their first and last names, which is going to be hard for this because I don't even remember his first name. I was at the London Olympics in 2012, I believe. I was walking home late one night, and this really sexy British guy we just locked eyes, and it was like sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's something you would see in a movie. I'm like, what if I just had an affair with this guy? And I walked past him and I stopped and I turned around and he had stopped. And it was late at night. Like, this was dangerous. You know, it could have been. He said, would you like to come back to my place? That was the first thing he said. The eye look that we had was so intense that I was like, yes. And we went back to his house. I mean, we barely spoke. I went over there every night after.
So
is she an Olympic athlete?
No, this is Chelsea Handler.
Chelsea Handler.
Yeah, she's a comedian. And I really like despise her because she's also like the poster child for child free. And a lot she does she does all these constant bits and comedy routines about how great her life is. So she'll be like, oh, I sleep until 3 a.m. and then I wake up and hit the bong and then I whatever, go get my nails done and then I get drunk and have casual sex with some stranger at the bar. And I look
so it's like
at this,
the TikTok lazy girl thing, or
yeah, but she was like, she had like comedy specials on, like she's like a pretty famous celebrity. And but I look at like this right now and it's like, this is the end game for that. Like, look at you now, you're all haggard looking, no man wants you. You should be like planning your daughter's wedding with her or something. And instead you're sitting on a podcast reminiscing about the casual sex that you used to have.
In an incredibly unsexy way too.
Yeah, it's like this. She looks like Gollum. I mean, she's like looking rough because you can tell that lifestyle has weighed heavy on her, the years of being a box wine mom and the pills. And we had dinner with a Austin-based stand-up comedian who's a woman a couple nights ago, and she was talking about just how tired she is as a stand-up of the rest of the female disgusting comic scene. Like, every stand-up female is this chick. Like, all they talk about is their vagina and just nasty shit all the time. It's disgusting. But the weird part is, like, since they all do that, it's not edgy even.
Right.
Like, they were playing on this edginess. It's all that way, so it's no longer edgy, and now it's just kind of like degenerates talking about degeneracy.
Yeah, I actually had a female comic in here, and I skipped over it, but I'll give you guys a little taste.
Also started working at a brothel. My pronouns are cum dumpster. A lot of the men feel kind of guilty. They think that they're taking advantage of us, and
it's exactly that. It's just like totally vulgar. Let me see here. This stuff.
I keep on expecting millennials to get tired of the whole like disgusting, profanity culture as millennial culture thing, and it keeps on never happening. I thought we would get over this in 2014.
It's hard to. I don't know. It seems like it's hard to dial culture back towards civilization. It just like seems like it's like I've never really seen things trend towards refinement or whatever, or decorum. The entire time I've been alive, it seems like we've just been trending constantly away from that. Yeah. Maybe it's possible. I've just never seen it.
Mayor Johnson, Chicago. How much has the city of Chicago spent on illegal immigration?
If you're referring to the 2022 up to 2024 of the buses coming from Texas, roughly the same percentage of the state of Texas, about 1% of our overall budget.
What is that? Because I don't have the city's budget in front of me. Numbers.
It's 1%, and if you want the actual calculation, we can make sure someone.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's 1% of the overall budget over the last 4 years.
That's why you're a failing
which
mayor.
is
Mayor
the same
Adams,
number that
how
was
much did
sent
the city
from us
of New
from
York
the
actually
state
spend
of
on
Texas.
illegal immigration? Mayor Johnson, I already asked you. You don't have a hard number, and if you don't have a hard number, you're not running your city well. Mayor Adams, how much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration?
6.9 billion of taxpayers' dollars.
$6.9 billion.
Once again, a little snapshot of America there for you. The guy doesn't know.
At least it's not England.
Yeah, mayor of Chicago, he doesn't know what the budget is for the city. You would think if you knew the budget and you're the mayor, you'd be capable of doing a calculation of what is 1%. It's not that's not the hardest.
He probably knew and didn't want to say. Like
right. Yeah.
Because they're ineffective, or they're actually being very effective, because I mean, we've gone to Austin multiple times in the last 10 years, and from 2015 to 2025, I mean, that place is completely trashed. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, guys. We got a decent amount of super chats. Let's just get into this a little bit, and then we'll call it a night here. Shift Demeanor sent $5 on Rumble, and he said, "Great guests. I like the later shows. Greetings to Jay from a Catholic brother." Thanks for the 5.
Yo.
We did the late show because Dave, to work with Dave's schedule. I'm not a fan because I eat supper and then I'm ready for bed, basically. But you do what you got to do to get the goat on.
I'm still the wage cuck, though. I work during the day. So thanks for accommodating me.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. All right. Nathan Kurt sent $5. Happy to see Jay and Dave interact. Thank you for that. I hope it was worth it. Hope you got your $5 worth.
No, thanks.
Jay Dyer, this is $5 from John Isaac. Jay Dyer got married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. Is that another?
If y'all are not familiar with my music, I make goofy songs. You can check out my Funko Pop song. I hate Funko Pops, so the song is satire.
Do you play instruments or?
No, I just do like vocals. So I just start singing crazy stuff.
Sweet.
It's improv.
Boomer Slayer sent $10. No message there. Don Browning sent $5 for the goal. No Coke and pasta, please. Yeah, that was a joke from last one. Jason Scholl sent $2. H. Brazzi sent $5. That's the funny thing, Dave. There is no rhetorical corner when it comes to whites. They will just hand wave your complaints and spam white supremacy.
Well, I mean, is that true? I mean, I am a person that does not believe rhetoric really accomplishes anything. But that being said,
funny position for a guy who talks so much.
Well, yeah, you're right. I do talk a lot. I mean, there is such a thing as a zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, and just looking at how this conversation has advanced to now, where Tucker Carlson is talking about how there needs to be countries that are considered, they're European, racially European people need to consider themselves to have indigenous countries, or countries where they are the indigenous people. That's a huge step in, I think, a good direction, actually.
But they do still spam white supremacy, right? I mean, you had this the Sam Cedar clip where he was talking to that Sarah Stock.
Oh yeah,
and she's saying, the culture of America is like white European Christian. A lot of people on Twitter calling her a Nazi from the left. A lot of the N word being thrown around, Nazi. So
yeah, I saw progressives like they were trying to dunk on this, right? But I don't know. Is our conservatives? It only really hurts if conservatives play ball with it. If conservatives are like, yeah, that's a completely acceptable position, then it has entered the Overton window. And, then they're just calling half the country Nazis again and again, like they have for the last 10 years.
No, that's a good point. You're right. The conservatives, I think, mostly are like, you had Matt Walsh defending it and stuff like that, which I thought was good. Yeah.
I mean, again, like, I don't think nationalism is going to fix what essentially is a spiritual problem. So I want to make that 100% clear. But at the same time, I just say this adoption of a collective frame to be just a necessary historical step forward that just needs to happen in order for us to kind of get a handle on the larger problem of
I sort of disagree, because I think the nationalism is the most important part, because that's the existential threat that we're facing. And when it comes to the spiritual side, that's something that as an individual you can control. Like, you can control your own spiritual development, the way you live your life, if you live your life in a godly way. No one can really stop you from doing that, right? But when it comes to
individually, yes. But I mean, people also have spiritual, like there is such thing as, I mean, we're getting into controversial theologically. There's such thing as like spirituality at a collective level. And
sure,
you have to be able to see European peoples and Western peoples before you see that they're sick in a spiritual way. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, it's obviously there's a lot of work to do there when it comes to like the moral fabric of society, or however you want to put it. But I feel like the nationalism thing is that's sort of the existential threat. And like Jay was saying, that a nation is the people, or like that's an integral part of it. And we need to like get on board with that. And then once we're on board with that, then the spiritual part will follow, I kind of think. I don't know. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're a boer, you need to worry about your people right now, because you're going to get ethnically cleansed imminently. But historically speaking,
same here, man. We need mass deportations. We need total immigration, like moratorium, or even just like a white immigration policy. Like we're headed in the same way as South Africa, right?
I agree with you, but you know, this is what I'm saying. Like, every single collective people that has been atheist and irreligious has always committed suicide. Like, this is what humans do collectively when they do not have a motivating spirituality. If it wasn't mass migration, we'd be looking to commit suicide in some other way. Arguably, we are committing suicide in multiple ways.
I think, yeah, I agree. Actually, with both positions, I think there's sort of concentric layer circles that go along with both the idea of the nation as a whole, and then perhaps down the road, some broader idea of a Christian imperium. That's actually the traditional position of the East and the West. There is that collective aspect, but I also agree that like that evangelization happens at a local level. It filters out, and then it eventually reaches like a larger scale, and then a larger scale. And then once the society is predominantly, I would argue, Orthodox Christianity is the thing that's going to be, that has that power, that ability to balance both the church and the state. I would argue, I'm not trying to spark a debate with Dave or anything, but the Vatican, in my view, has kind of stepped away from the idea of a Christian state. Many Catholics have been, even critical of that in the last 50 years, 60 years since Vatican II. But I think in Orthodox Christianity, there's at least still the potentiality of the notion of a Christian state.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there in the future there might be radically different social organizations, but I'm very sympathetic to the whole Ghibelline idea of the Christian state that has a destiny of its own. So I'll say that to avoid a debate.
Okay. Paulie B sent $5 and says, I care as much about race relations as I do the stock market. Well, I don't know how much you care about the stock market, so I'm not sure what to make of that. I think that might have been
some people care a lot about that.
yeah. I think
if you have stock portfolio.
That might have been in the context of the Derek Chauvin and the race war riots thing we were talking about, which, it's easy to not care until they're burning down your house or whatever. Then you're going to care. Michael Cruz sent $20. Blessings to all y'all. Great show. Looking forward to the next Fiddler's Green. That's your show, right, Dave?
That's my podcast. Yeah. I'm not very good with names.
Did you read Sandman? The Sandman
Yes.
comics? Yeah, Fiddler's Green was like a character.
It was a copy of G.K. Chesterton.
And was that like a poem or a book that Chesterton wrote or something like that? Or what? Where does that come from?
It's weird. Fiddler's Green is it's a song and a folk song and a folk tale that was associated largely with like sailors, and for whatever reason, Gaiman associated that with G.K. Chesterton. I play the fiddle, which is why I picked the name to correspond also with my nom de plume, so to speak. So it's not a very good name. I agree.
I like it.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right. Amazing Disgrace sent $5. I got a lot of crap for comparing libertarians to the children with a Fisher-Price steering wheel pretending they can drive the car. By the way, Jay, I saw when we were talking, I saw in the normal chat go by a while, somebody said Jay doesn't understand libertarianism. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I've been debating or critiquing libertarianism for, I don't know, since the 2000s. So I'm pretty familiar with it.
Yeah. And you do like call-in debates, right?
Yeah,
like,
we do all that.
There you go. So whoever sent that chat.
Yeah, they're welcome to call
in and school Jay on libertarianism.
Please do.
I have one comment. Does anyone take libertarianism seriously after COVID? That was like the last year I took libertarianism seriously.
I was calling it lolbertarianism before COVID, so
yeah.
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean,
I dropped libertarianism when I was a traditional Catholic. I read a bunch of SSPX materials that were pro-monarchy. I read Solange Hertz's book Critiquing Americanism. I read the papal encyclicals Critiquing Americanism. All of that's actually what cleansed me of a lot of that back in 2007-8. And I still appreciate aspects of the Ron Paul ethos or whatever. Audit the Fed, yeah, sure, but like that's just not enough to build a civilization on. It's really ultimately problematic.
Yeah. I think libertarianism maybe has a utility in being like a little force that kind of pulls like that kind of tries to check maybe. And like the libertarians now are nominally right wing. So they can threaten Republicans and they can say to like Republicans, like, hey, you're doing too much right now. We're going to vote for the libertarian. And so in that sense, it can there maybe can be good theoretically if they're polling on the right threads, I guess. But in terms of like having a libertarian society, fucking forget about it.
It's like the ultimate thing you adopt, like when you're not a progressive, you're like, oh no, I'm not a scary conservative. I'm a libertarian. Right. Like, and then it's like all right to be that. Like it's somewhat socially acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. H. Brazzi sent $5 and says Skittle men are buying baby boys from their mothers to do booty stuff. And you think the worst is behind us. Hedonism will win for years to come. Oh, man.
Black pill comment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I hate to say people are waking up, but I don't know. I think we're just going to kind of go in two different directions as a society.
I heard there was a tweet that the decline in church attendance has like finally leveled off because
it has,
like,
yeah.
Young people started going to church again in slightly greater numbers than past generations.
Yeah, there's been multiple studies that the growth in the nuns has finally stopped. They stopped growing and have started declining. And there's been a very small resurgence in church attendance. So this could be the vibe shift kind of taking root properly.
Oil King sent $10. He says, LP, do you like polka? We need more animators like Murdoch. Psalm chapter 1 needs to be said. We are done with bad faith arguments. Cedar and Company, trash, yag, yag, yag. I tooted. All right. Well, thanks for the $10. I'm not really a big polka fan. I like once in a while. I like some accordion stuff, but it's not really in my regular rotation to crank a lot of polka. And Oil King sent $5 and said, Jay, could you be the voice actor? And do you like polka?
But voice actor for what?
Do you know Murdoch? Do you know that old alt-right cartoon? It was an old YouTube show from like 2016. They stopped making it, but he's saying it was like an animated thing, and he's saying we need more animated right-wing culture.
I can do about 50 impressions, so I'm always down for that. Yeah.
What's a good impression you can do?
Everybody from Jesse Lee Peterson to Nicolas Cage.
Hit us with your JLP real quick.
Did you know that women at the gates of hell? Evil that come to the women. Did you know that women at the gates of hell? Evil that come to the women. That's amazing.
All right.
By the way, he actually thinks that women are the gates of hell in the book of Genesis.
I love Jesse, man. He's a national treasure as far as I'm concerned. Nikos Bordy sent $2. Jay, can you do a theology philosophy library tour? Like a book tour, I guess?
I mean, everybody keeps asking for this. I'm not sure why. I mean, because there's a lot of boring reference books. Like, I don't know if they think they're going to see like my anime section. Like, I don't have any anime, so I don't know why people want to see them. But I mean, maybe one day. Yeah, I guess we do.
Yeah. Do you have kids, Jay, or?
We do not, but that's not because we're avoiding kids. Well, we don't think my wife can have kids, but we do not try to not have kids, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully I will. Cause Roosh V did like a cross state book tour thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Roosh V, but
I know Roosh.
Yeah. He vlogged the whole thing. And then he wrote a book about it called American Pilgrim, which I read. Is actually a good book. And it seems like it would be a fun thing to do if you can swing it. A lot of planning involved, obviously, but you get, a good experience to go all over America. And I just asked about the kids because it was like, it would be really hard to do that.
We already do that. Like we actually do, when I have a new book come out, we do live events. Usually we do Nashville, Orlando, Austin, LA, a couple other places. So we usually do that every year or two.
Didn't you say you have a new book coming out, or you just put one?
Yeah, my Esoteric Hollywood 3 will be out like in a couple months.
Sweet. All right. H. Brassi sent $5. Conservatives will always play ball with it, Dave. I agree with your point on the spiritual issues as well. Jay has been pressing that point for years. Play ball with it. I'm not sure what he means.
Think they mean like degeneracy?
Right.
I mean, the based gay guy has been.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, kind of just like going in circles here. Austin sent $5. When can Jay Dyer debate Adam Green? We need the scripture battle to exist one day. What is the story with that? Because I've heard people say you are scared of Adam Green. I've heard people say Adam Green is scared of you.
Right. So I don't debate everyone that wants to debate. He debated one of my good friends, David Patrick Harry, Church of the Eternal Logos. They had a 2-3 hour debate. I think you can still find it on Rumble or BitChute. And if you go watch that debate, you'll see that, I mean, usually when I engage in a debate, it's a pretty philosophically dense exchange. Not bragging, or I'm just saying that's how it goes. And Adam Green has no familiarity or knowledge of anything to do with basic fallacies, anything to do with critical thinking, epistemology. And that debate with Kotel, David Patrick Harry, shows that. So it's really just not worth engaging in. There's other people too that, want to do debates that are just super low tier, and it really just isn't worth it. It's going to be a repeat of the David Patrick Harry debate.
Right. Yeah. I hosted a debate with Adam Green and Corey Mahler like a month ago. And that did kind of come up where Corey would be like, well, like, how do you, like, you don't believe anything. Like, what is truth? And the atheists all just kind of roll their eyes and are like, come on, this is retarded. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. Maybe it's a real question.
Well, I mean, I've got I've got multiple pagan debates I've already done. I debated Bog Lord Dave back in the day, and I've debated all the top atheists. So it's just like those kind of debates are just kind of like the same debate over and over and over.
Yeah. All right. H Brassy sent $5. I'm the most dedicated J follower on earth right now. So trust me, I'm not blackpilling at all. I just don't think the culture shift will occur soon. Okay. Well, thank you for.
I agree with that. I think we're under decades and decades of social engineering, Fabian socialism, mind control, Tavistock Institute. So it's probably going to take decades and decades to undo, in my view.
Thank you. Lev sent $2 and says I missed his super chat, but I'm scrolling through it again and I don't see it, Lev. I'm sorry, unless it's on the power chat, which I haven't got to yet. All right. Helios Tanner sent $5. I want to be a guest on this show. Well, the problem is nobody knows who you are. Dude, at least I don't, but maybe. Nico's Bordy sent $2. Jay, when's the Alex O'Connor and Michael Knowles debate?
That already happened, so I don't know why they're asking me that.
I think I'm going to be on Lev's channel tomorrow for a debate, so that's probably why he's super chatting.
Oh, who are you debating?
Some liberal about whether Trump's gone too far. I feel like I'm always debating like this avenue of like centrist liberals that it's been doing this again.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Lev, if it was on YouTube, I don't see it. But I'm going over to the power chats now, and then should be the last ones here. Let me see. What is it? Today's the 12th, or just a few here. Rick Verger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just remembered. I was thinking of Alex O'Connor and someone else. Is there an upcoming Michael Knowles, Alex O'Connor debate? I don't
who is Alex O'Connor?
Cosmic Skeptic. He's like the top.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Him. This guy.
Right.
Man,
anyway, I don't know.
He's like a throwback to 2007.
Very much.
Michael Knowles is pretty sharp, so I might check that out if it happens. Rick Verger sent $5. Great show, LP. Been watching you for years. Was disappointed to see you blocked me on Twitter. Not sure how it happened. Would you mind unblocking the idea? Yeah, hopefully your Twitter name is Rick Verger. I'll look for that. If you have a different handle, you should have included it. People always do this thing like, hey, can you unblock me? And I'm like, well, I can't find you. But I'll look for you and unblock you if I can find you.
Speaking of Michael Knowles, I just remembered we're trying to get a debate on Timcast with it's me. I'm not sure who my co-debate person would be, but Tim Gordon and Michael Knowles versus me and somebody. And then now they want to bring in a Protestant, which I think that's going to be too many people. But it might be Wes Huff. So we might have a giant sort of free-for-all debate.
He's a big star now, Wes Huff. Who did you say? Gordon? Who's the other one?
So Tim Gordon does Rules for Retrograde, and he's buddies with Michael Knowles. So we're trying to get that set up.
And it's just going to be like a theological sect debate, or
it's like Orthodox versus Protestant versus Catholic debate.
Gotcha.
So it'll be huge if Michael Knowles will do it. I kind of feel like he won't, but I don't know. We'll see.
You never know. He went on the Whatever podcast a bunch of times,
right,
and that seems like lower level than Tim Pool. So who knows? Betrayed sent $3. Florida Israel cucks got to go. No, I'm not sure what that's in reference to. And then let me see. There's a couple more came in on YouTube. $10 from H. Brassy. Just to further bolster what Jay said regarding Adam Green, go find his debates with Jeem or Andrew. No understanding of what fallacious arguments are. I'm not just capping for Jay. The dude is
I forgot he debated Jeem. That debate's really good too. And I forgot he debated Andrew. That's right.
Cool. Thanks very much for all the support, everybody. And finally, $5 from Amazing Disgrace. Change can come quick as an epiphany. Have faith in what you are doing. I hope so. I hope change does come. All right, that's everything. Wow, good show. A lot of heavy stuff. My brain. I'm gonna need a drink and a crash after this. But thanks you so much to my guests. I'll give you guys a chance to plug or let people know where to look for you. Of course, I put links to your Twitter and your YouTube accounts. But if there's anything else you want to plug or let people know about, please go ahead. Jay, why don't you start?
Yeah, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to both you guys. Great topics, fun videos tonight. Yeah, my like I said, third Esoteric Hollywood book will be out in a couple months. You can always buy 1 and 2 in the shop at my website, jaysanalysis.com. We have a vast archive there of all my talks, interviews, and lectures going back last decade or so. You can follow me on X for Alex Jones every Friday. We just did 2 shows with Alex the past couple of days, so go check those out on X. Yeah, I think that's if you follow me on any of the socials, it's under my name. So thank you so much.
Thanks. I guess I'll go. I'm Dave Green. I blog at, well, I'm mostly known for the YouTube channel, The Distributist, and I'm off Twitter for Lent, but you can catch me at my Substack at Letters from Fiddler's Green. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation.
Oh man. Okay. Lev sent on Streamlabs. My bad. The one I did miss that. Okay. So on Streamlabs, Lev said $5. He said, Dave, a reminder about tomorrow's show with River Page at 7. Well, you already brought that up. So he said, please let me know, but it sounds like you're going to be there.
It's on my calendar. Yes.
There you go. You can always count on Dave. And also Jay, Gnostic informant would love to talk with you, and he feels you two got off on the wrong foot.
I'm good, but thank you.
Cool.
I'm shooting for Michael Knowles. I'm not shooting for.
Yeah, there you go.
YouTube Gnostics.
Yeah.
But thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks. Wonderful guests. Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for watching and all the super chats. Great support tonight. I really appreciate it. We're going to call it a night. So everybody enjoy your evening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.